Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Environmental Science Analysis with Dr. Lisa. Here we are. I'm going to show you today several different ways to load your data into R. This is important because there are many different ways. They have their strengths and their weaknesses. And I want you to understand them because this is going to make my life easier when I go to grade your homework. Okay, so I'm gonna first thing I always like to do is clear out these consoles. Clear out everything. I'm also going to delete some of this stuff just so I don't confuse you. But the first and easiest way, I think, is to use base R, right? Base R just means the things that come with R. And you can use a function called read.csv. So you're going to create a data frame. I'm going to call it my data. And I'm going to use read.csv. And here's the path. It's on my G drive, my drive. I call my little folder R code. And here's my CSV file. I'm using header equals true because my data has the first row is the headers. So if I can control enter this, there's my data. It has popped up here. And you can see that the headers are actually correct, right? Species, station, etc. So that's worked properly. Of course, if you want to import data from an Excel file, you need to install this package, read Excel, and then load up the library for read Excel. And then you use a very similar line of code, except instead of read.csv, it's read_Excel. Don't ask me why there's an underscore instead of a period. I don't know, it's a mystery. Again, here's your path length. And now instead of saying header equals true, I'm going to say column names equals true. And that should import. This is a different set of data. So here's the isotherm data, just got imported. I can open this up and you can see again, it's correctly identified the headers and use them to name the columns. So those are two pretty straightforward ways. Now, I know a lot of the students in my class really like to use this dialog over here, import dataset, which is absolutely fine. Here I can import from text using the base file. And this is all up here, Google Drive, R code. Fish PMF result. It gives this dialog box. Right now, it's not recognizing the headers, right? See, it's calling things V1, V2, V3. I want it to recognize the headers, so I say yes. And now it's correctly identifying the headers, and I can hit import. Now, here's the important part of this. So my data is imported correctly all as well. But for you in my class, it's very important. Look, right here is the line of code that R wrote for itself to import that data, and I can Control C and Control V, copy and paste it. Now I have to get rid of this little caret thing. But now here's my code. I didn't have to write it. The program wrote it for me, but it's very important that you copy this line of code into your R code that you're going to save so that when you turn it into me, I can find your data. Because half the time, if you use the import data set, again, that's fine, but make sure you copy the code. And so again, I can do the same thing if I want to import from Excel. Gives me a dialog box. I go over here, browse for my data. I'm going to use the isotherm data here. And again, see, here's the code. It's the preview of what the code is going to look like. It's already selected first rows, its names, but if I needed to, I could click that dialog box. And I can copy this. And after I hit import, the same line of code will also appear down here, but I copied it from that dialog box, and now I don't have to get rid of those little carets. But there's the line of code written for you. So make sure you copy that line of code into the .r file that you're going to turn in for your homework. It will make my life so much easier, and I will thank you. And now I'm going to blow your mind with yet another way of importing data. So let's say we want to use a CSV file. I'm just going to copy this line of code. And now, instead of giving myself an actual file name, I'm just going to do file.oops, sorry. I just did something wrong. Undo, undo. Here we go. Let's try that again. I hit something wrong. Control V. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get rid of all this. I'm getting rid of the file name here, and I'm going to do file.choose and the double parentheses. Now, when I hit Control Enter, it opens a dialog box that lets me choose my file. And this is very helpful for me because usually the path that you use to get your data and then you turn in your file, that's not the same path that I need to use to get to your data. So I will often use this file.choose dialog to go find the data that I want to import. Okay, so if I did this, I'll just show you how, assuming I can find what the heck I'm looking for. These are documents, right? I need to go up here to my G drive, my drive, R code, and then I could choose, this is CSV, so I could open, and it's going to do exactly the same thing as it did before. It's loaded this fish into notice that it's loaded it into my data. So there it is, okay? Notice that when I use the dialog boxes up here, and it wrote the code for me, the name of the data frame that it went into is by default exactly the same name as the CSV file, which is fine, except sometimes your file names are really, really long with lots of spaces and stuff. And so sometimes you might want to rename this and give it a much shorter name. But anyway, this file choose thing works just fine. It works fine with the Excel as well. So I'll just do that to prove it to you. Again, here, I'm going to get rid of all this and do file.choose, parentheses, boom, booyah, same thing. I can go, go select the correct file name, R code, isotherm data, open. And I will get exactly the same result. I'm going to get the same data and everything. It's just that I can choose the file through a dialog box rather than having to go write all this code. So 3 different ways to import your data. Of course, there's lots of other ways to import your data if you have other data formats other than Excel and CSV, but these are the most common ones that you're going to end up using in this class.